Welcome to the Ellis Talker Show. If you enjoy our content, please like or subscribe.
Hi, welcome to the Ellis Talker Show. I'm DV LeBron. Do you have things you want to get done around the house? Maybe, your roof needs repaired from these storms or something? Check out K&H Construction in Waxahachie. Mr. Chris Helms, he's a local guy. He'll take care of you and let him know DV LeBron sent you. So every year, I try to cover the budgets for the schools in Ellis County and along with the cities. And right now it's budget time. It's always budget time, but right now it's budget time for the schools. So I wanted to have the leadership of MISD on to talk about this year's upcoming budget. There's still, I think the third workshop just happened, President Timm.
Yes, sir.
Just
Last night.
happened. So decisions are starting to move around, but I wanted to have people who understand what's kind of going on and kind of both the political side and kind of the number side on to kind of discuss this like I do every year. So guys, welcome to the show. I really appreciate you giving me your time.
Yeah, DV, we really appreciate the time as well. And thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
There's a lot going on.
Sorry.
It's okay. Dogs do what they do. But there's a lot of things going on in the schools right now as far as the budget is concerned. We're going on, I think, and if I'm wrong, please do not get me. It's like the third year right now that we're kind of experiencing deficits. And, people may be concerned about how that's going to be affecting their children, the teachers, staff. There's a bunch of stuff that I want to cover with this. But I kind of want to talk about where we're at when it comes to the deficit. And then we'll talk about how that's going to affect.
Absolutely. So let me go back because when I first arrived in October of 23, the 23-24 school year, in the spring, we did discover we were trending in a deficit direction, a pretty sizable deficit. And the staff, we all got busy reducing expenses. And we ended up that year with a deficit of less than $1 million, at like $820,000, give or take. Okay, which is, you never want to run a deficit, but boy, that was much better than what was projected early on. And there were multiple things that helped with that. It was reducing expenses, not filling some positions, and also some state level property appeal where we lowered our values and received more state funding. And that really helped bridge some of those things. The second year in 24-25, we did not run a deficit. We thought we were going to run one, but we sold some property in the district,
Right.
And that really helped us end up with about a $500,000 surplus. So that was a blessing, and it was great. I mean, the board led the way on that with the sale of that property, and that was just something that, again, we were highly blessed with. And again, a lot of savings, a lot of trying to shore up expenses and reduce those expenses. And so this year, after House Bill 2 was applied, and House Bill 2 did help, but a lot of the money from House Bill 2 from the legislature was designated to certain things that we had to use the money for, which a lot of it was salary, which is great because we all want to give our teachers and our staff, the increases that we can. We projected about a $3.3 million deficit, and we shared with the board last night with different savings and personnel and through conservative budgeting and things of this nature. Again, some more savings on the operational side. We are projecting about a $500,000 deficit for this year. So we're able to shore that back down to less than $1 million is what we're projecting. Nothing's over until June 30th when our fiscal year ends. So we could get a curveball here or there. It could be a little better and it could be a little worse, but that's Dr. Metzger, our Assistant Sup for Business and Operations. That's where she's projecting us to be right now.
And any one of you guys can answer this, but is this a local decision thing or is this state funding? Is this a combination? What is causing these things where you have to adjust so much?
Well, I think first off, Ryan, please jump in when you're ready.
Go ahead.
Inflation has been a huge impact since COVID, since 2020. We know that it's been, I don't know if it's historic inflation, but extreme inflation that appears to have leveled off, but those prices and those increases haven't trended back down. And we're all feeling it. And for instance, right now, diesel has gone through the roof and we're feeling that in our budget this year. So there's a lot of expenses, whether it's like our homeowners policy on, our insurance on all our buildings and things. Those premiums had gone up dramatically until this year when they actually dropped slightly. And so we were really happy about that. But there's a lot of expenses that have just gone up, and it's just expense to operate, whether it's utilities, insurance, diesel, the cost of things has really gone up. And so that's where some state funding hasn't necessarily helped us keep up with the cost of inflation. Like I said, House Bill 2 it did help us to a degree, but a lot of that money was designated where we needed to spend it. And so I think that's a big piece of this puzzle. We've worked really hard to, again, reduce costs. We've cut almost 100 jobs over the last 4.5 years to the district, and saving, 4.5 million to 5 million annually, and things of this nature. And so that's a big way for us to try to shore these things up. So I think that's piece of it. So I mean, Ryan, if you want to
It's
that as well.
BV, we see these costs of things keep rising and our revenue isn't rising. We're not getting any more funding from the state. We've got things that are being mandated to us that are not being funded, that we're having to pay for. And so that revenue doesn't increase, but it is great news, like what Dr. Belding said, that the district's done such an amazing job that it went from, again, 3 million down to 500,000 for this past year. And so that puts us in a much better place than we had thought and planned. And if it wasn't for things like that rise of the cost of diesel, that 500, it might be even less,
Talk to me about
because that would made a big difference for us.
Talk to me about, as far as the board is concerned, and I know you can't speak for everybody, but just as the president, just your general consensus of what you've seen. How has the board, what are the major concerns with, Dr. Belding was talking about there were staffing cuts, there were this cuts, they're moving this, and you have to sit through these workshops, so you know that the things that are getting cut much better than I do. What is the concern when it comes to the board with the last 3 years of things kind of being in flux?
From my perspective, from my seat as one board member of 7, we're seeing things like our teachers, our staff, our administrators are doing a whole lot more with a whole lot less. I would challenge everyone to go back and watch the workshop last night. Dr. Belding shared a comparison of our comparison group of districts around us, and our percentages and our numbers that we have from teachers, a ratio of teachers to student, a ratio of administrators to student, paraprofessionals, to student. We are well below all of our peers when it comes to those numbers. And we talk about these cuts that we're doing, but then you take those numbers where we may not have as many adults to kids, and we're still doing great things. Our teachers are still doing so much more with so much less. And then when you look at things, changes that we want to make where we can change, bring in more revenue, save a little bit of money, one of the first things that come up is class size. We're sitting at 26 to 1. Well, let's take it to 28 to 1. That's one of the big things that keeps being said. And it may get us, and forgive me if my numbers are completely wrong, it may get us like $1 million. But as far as I'm concerned, from my seat and a lot of other board members, we don't want to make that change. We don't want to see that increase in students per class, because a lot of times, even when we're talking secondary, those numbers and those averages come out and it's well over 28. There may be more than 28 kids in a class. And so we definitely do not want to see that. Yes, it's a place that is costing us. And as we get to, talking about where we're sitting for this next year and a possible deficit, it's not a change that Ryan Timm is willing to make for our teachers and for our students.
Dr. Go ahead.
DB, to reinforce what Mr. Timm just talked about, that particular data that he's referring to on our staffing, I just went to the TEA website, and there's the Texas Academic Performance Report, and it's got staffing numbers in there, and it'll show the percentage of your, like the percentage of teachers of your entire staff, the number of teachers. And so I just pulled 29 other districts. There's 30 total in this comparison group. And so we compared to compensation plans in the past or things of this nature, and then geographically close to us. And basically, if we were just to go to the average ratio of staff member to student of that group, our district would need to add 201 positions to be at the average.
Damn.
Okay. So that indicates that, we're running on a really lean staffing model. And like Ryan talked about, our people are doing great things with less, and we really appreciate them so much. And I think that's one reason why the board last night in that work session talked about wanting to give a 2% raise, even though we're continuing to try to find more revenue and get to a fully balanced budget. But our people are doing quite a bit and really performing well with less. And so we wanted to make sure we're taking good care of them the best that we can.
What are these cuts, and have they been administration? Have they been teachers? Where are you finding these savings? And long term, how is it affecting your day-to-day operations, and how is it affecting your students?
Sure. The cuts, position reductions have really been across the board. And we cut at administrative level, we cut at the district level, and then we did go from 25 to 1 to 26 to 1 for the 24-25 school year. So there's some teacher positions that we reduced. We've reduced some operational staff and things. So it's really been across the board. And right now, I don't know that our students walking the halls perceive a difference per se. Okay. There are, because our group has really worked hard to protect that student experience and to make sure that we're not impacting student programs and we're staffing there and things of this nature. It's just sometimes you just need people to do certain things. And so we've got people carrying 4 or 5 responsibilities in some cases and doing that. And maybe we don't have quite as many people to pull kids out in smaller groups. We've got interventionists. We are doing all of our accelerated instruction. All that's happening, but we're just not able maybe in the smallest of groups like some other places and stuff. So,
Right.
but our kids are performing well. We're seeing a lot of academic growth because our teachers are stepping up to the plate and making it happen.
And, that's probably one of those concerns most about, when parents think about what's going on with that is, their kids' education, obviously. Now, on the political front, when it comes to that, I know that there's been discussions this budget session about raising revenue, whether I don't know exactly what's been considered, but I know one of them is that online something with an online thing, and I'm sorry if I don't know more about it, but maybe you could talk to the parents about what that is, Ryan, and some of the other things that are being considered. Are you considering maybe taking that exemption away that you guys have for property taxes? Is everything on the table? What's it looking like?
Man, I think when DV, when you look at cutting programs for students, or what other options we have. So to start with the online school, curriculum and instruction department headed up by Shelley Blaylock, assistant superintendent, did an amazing job of putting a group together, coming up with some different plans of could we go 100% online to bring in some more students and capture some funds and some daily money that we are currently not getting. It's in the works. As of last night at the budget workshop, all board members said, "Hey, let's move forward and let's put put it out there. Can we get some students to sign up with a cap of, I believe, about 100?" But we have a plan. Part of it was, could we do 100% online, or could we do a hybrid to have some students come in? When you think about when you're looking at UIL and could students participate still in different areas of the day, they would have to, from what we heard, be face to face for 4 hours in order to qualify to be able to participate in UIL. We did not feel comfortable, our curriculum department, our administration did not feel comfortable that they could pull that off completely by August. And we don't want to do it unless we can do it right. And so we're still kind of watching, and I say we, the district is still kind of watching, researching how can we do that, but we're prepared to move forward with the full online. And so if parents, if you're listening and that's something that might interest you, or your student, now this is high school only, this is 9 through 12. Information will be coming out about that via our website, I'm guessing social media channels. So keep an eye on that if that's something that you think that your student may be interested in.
And go ahead.
Go ahead.
When it comes to the other things like the tax exemption, is that something you guys considering? I know that in prior years you talked about a Vader. Are those things for revenue that the board is considering at this time?
At this time, we got to look at everything, DV. We would not be able to remove the homestead exemption until 2027.
28.
What about 28? So
Wow.
obviously in 2028, if we're still looking at a deficit, yeah, that's something that you got to look at, because we have to look at how can we get revenue? How can we make our district run? Because you can't run on hopes and dreams. We got to have funds too. We got to pay teachers. We got to keep the lights on. We got to do all these things. And so, do I want to remove that? Does any board member want to remove that? No. Of course, we want to help the people of our community, but we also have to help our teachers and our schools, because our community is great, because our schools are great.
Right.
So you can't, like I said, run on hopes and dreams. We have to put gas in the tanks to make them run. And so if that's something that we have to look at down the road, then it's something that's going to be looked at. Is it going to be, dangled and used? No, it's going to be made a true decision by the board that's sitting in those seats at that time.
Yeah.
Vader, that would have to come up in November. That has not been something that we've discussed it, but that would have to be called here pretty soon to get that taken care of. Our city has voted it down twice. We've missed out on those 3 golden pennies. And so I said twice, but it may be once.
Yeah, just once.
Once.
It just once. It got voted down once. So we missed out on those 3 golden pennies. I would encourage everyone also to go back and look at board workshop number 2, where there was another comparison that Dr. Belding made that showed that in our comparison group, the people around us who has their golden pennies and who gives it a tax exemption. Because, correct me if I'm wrong here, Dr. Belding, but we give the homestead exemption and we don't have the golden pennies. We're the only one who does that in our area. And so that is a lot of funds that we are missing out on to help the people in our community. We can't stay running a deficit budget year after year after year. Something has to change.
Well, yeah, Ryan, you're exactly right. And we did go and do an analysis of districts that, in size are similar to us, geographically around us, and things of this nature. And we're one of the few districts that don't have the 3 golden pennies. And the thing about those pennies, so people remember, is if the voters were to approve those, it would net us a little over $5 million in M&O revenue, half of which is from the state. The state is giving us additional state money if the voters were to approve those. Now, like he said, we're one of the few districts that don't have it around us that look similar to us and in size and things. And then with the optional homestead exemption, again, nobody in Ellis County gives that. There's very few districts around the state that do that. And at that 10% number, that's another a little over $5 million of M&O revenue a year. So with that kind of structural revenue issue that we have, that's about $10.5 million a year in M&O revenue that we don't have access to. Thus, why we run so lean. We're fighting hard to be competitive with compensation, provide all the student programs and things of this nature. And so it's I'm gonna say our staff is providing a great value because they're doing more with less, and really proud of them and appreciate it. And I don't want to come across as that we're not thankful for the resources that our community gives us, because it's a very giving community, and I've never seen a group that was willing to invest. And so thank you to our community for the resources that you give us. It's just the cost of doing business continues to go up, and our kids, we're growing, and we've got kids walking the halls, and we want to provide the very best education we can.
I want to go back to the online thing, Dr. Belding.
Mhm.
Because there was, confusion or stuff like that. One of the things that I know about online and around COVID and the way things were, was there was an intense learning loss that was experienced that you guys had to catch up with. There was a lot of stuff that you guys had to put into schooling to try to get the students back up from that learning loss. Should parents be concerned about that learning loss? And also, can you talk about how that, adding this option helps with ADA, the money, the revenue?
Sure. First off, online learning, I think, in my experience with COVID during that time, part of the problem was we did it very quickly. There wasn't a a whole lot of lead time. There weren't that many people doing it at the time for us to learn some lessons from. And when you put everybody on these online platforms, it's not going to meet the majority of kids' needs. Now, there was a percentage of kids that, man, that speaks to them. They thrive in that environment and they can really do well. Okay. And that's who we would really be encouraging to consider this option, are the kids that really thrive in this kind of environment. And so one of the reasons, like when Ryan talked about not wanting to, for us not to jump into the hybrid platform too quickly, is because there's just a lot of variables with hybrid that we need to account for and we need to work through. And we don't want to launch something that we don't feel comfortable that we could do it really well and provide quality. The 100% virtual platform, we've got a particular program we've been using in our LEAP program that has been really successful. And so we've had that for years. We've been experimenting with that. And so that's the one that we would actually broaden out and be able to put kids with, and then have teachers that would have office hours to support students. It would be what I would call an asynchronous model, not a synchronous model. You're not going to meet a teacher every day at 10 a.m. to learn about pre-cal. Okay, you're going to be working through an online course and then have office hours to get things explained from the teacher, ask questions, things like that. So I would encourage parents to really consider, is this the right platform for my kid, for my child? Are they going to thrive in this environment? And we would have some, kind of benchmarks in place that if we think a child is struggling through this, to be able to say, hey, we really recommend they come back on campus. And that's another reason why we're really focused on 9 through 12. We're not offering this for 8th grade and down. Okay.
Right.
But when kids are in high school, they're starting to, their learning modality is starting to be well established. They can be more independent with it. And we think there's a higher opportunity to be successful. We also would have, lessons and things to be able to help kids be prepared for their state assessments, for their end of course exams, because we don't want kids in that platform and then they can't pass their EOCs and therefore they can't graduate. So, we would have, that's another piece of this variable that we're trying to account for and have in there. The ADA side of it is really where the revenue would come in, where if we increase our enrollment because we're offering this, or recovering some people that have left to go to an online program, that's all the different types that are out there, and they come back with us, that's kind of recovering that enrollment. The state would have a process to determine their attendance and therefore the average daily attendance and how they pay off that basic allotment for that. So that's where the revenue part of it comes from.
Now you have a situation where, just like every year, and every year we talk about this, Ryan and Dr. Belding, we talk about this, people's property taxes, they're going up and they keep going up and they keep going up. And, some people are really struggling with that. Tell me, with, the amount of revenue that keeps coming in from that, because they're taxpayers equate their tax bill is going up and up and up. Well, why is the school needing more money if it's going up and up and up? Can you talk about, how that money doesn't completely go straight over, or maybe recapture or something, so people can understand that it doesn't necessarily, just because they're seeing more on their bill, doesn't necessarily mean that you're flush with cash.
No, that's exactly right. And it's so counterintuitive. School finance is such a complicated system. And so here's what I just, again, want to reiterate to people is, as our local revenues on the maintenance and operations side of our budget increase, the state revenue that they send to us decreases, where just because we're getting more local revenue doesn't mean we have more money. Okay, because it's all about the equalization of school funding in the state of Texas, and lawsuits that go back to the early 2000s, where we had districts that were very property poor and really couldn't offer a basic standard of programs and things of this nature. And so the state Supreme Court found that to be unconstitutional. So the state had to find a way to equalize to a degree, to bring everybody up to a particular floor and then equalize that. So that's why you have districts around the state that you talked about recapture, that whenever their local revenue exceeds their bucket of resources, that based on their enrollment, that the state says, this is what you get, then that local money then would go back to the state to be distributed into other parts of the state budget and other districts throughout the state of Texas. And so we are not a recapture district at this time. We're not property wealthy. We're not property poor either. We're not sending money back to the state that's local dollars. But that's where that local revenue, as it goes up on the M&O side, the state money that is typically coming in goes down. And that's something that, again, it's very counterintuitive, but that is the system. It's, again, based on our enrollment, we get a particular amount of resources that's total between local and state revenue. And if one goes up, the other one goes down.
Right.
If our local revenue goes down because like our values drop, then our state revenue would go up to keep us, basically on that level playing field. Does that make sense to you? I mean, did you kind of, did I explain that?
Look, I've been covering this school finance for years now. I'm grateful for you guys that come on in the local area, and it kicks my butt every time. I am not smart enough for such things, so I don't pretend to be an expert. But what I want to do when I do ask those questions is kind of make it as layman as possible so people understand, because it is their money and is their children.
Yes.
And so it's something that I try every year to make it as clear as possible, coming from the source, coming from you guys. That way people, they could either understand. It's not up to me whether they understand or whether they agree, but I'm going to put it out there and, they could take it. And that's kind of what I want the community to do when I do these shows. Ryan, I got to ask you this, and this is a little bit of a stinger. Okay. Can the parents of Midlothian expect a tax rate increase this year?
So here, and that's what I was going to get to, and correct me here, Dr. Belding, if I misspeak, but the school board sets a tax rate. So if people are seeing a tax increase, we haven't raised, contrary to popular belief, the tax rate. Okay. So if your tax bill goes up, it's because the value of your property went up. The tax rate set by the 7 members of the school board did not. During the Vader, the tax rate, had it gotten passed, that rate would not have gone up. But if your value went up, then your bill would have gone up. School board does not move anything, has not moved anything, doesn't plan to move anything. Okay. Again, DV, I'm one of 7. Sorry if I got a little excited there.
It's okay. You're passionate about it.
But that doesn't move. Okay. There's been a lot of talk about property taxes. It's always a buzzword. It's always this huge thing that we're trying to raise it and we're going to increase it. And the tax rate hasn't moved. Our tax rate has gone down if you look at it for Midlothian ISD, for the city of Midlothian, consistently. Okay. There's nothing we can do about property values, but you know why property values go up? Because we got a dang good school district, DV. That's why.
And that will raise property values. That's what people come to Midlothian about. But I mean, do you guys anticipate that you're going to have to go up on that rate? Because the rates have been coming down or being steady.
We don't anticipate that.
You don't anticipate you'll have to go up?
In the budget work session last night, Dr. Metzger predicts that our M&O tax rate will be compressed down. Now, some of it will depend on our final certified property values in July. And then we put the calculations, we send it to TEA, and they tell us what that M&O, what they call the maximum compressed rate, or MCR, will be. The INS rate of 41 cents, we're about to sell some bonds. And so that is not going to go up, and that's going to stay the same, is what we'll propose. Okay. All of it's pending board approval, but I think the board is committed to that INS rate's not going up. I feel really confident about that, and that we anticipate that M&O rate to come down.
Brian, you guys had to lower that INS rate for that Vader the last time, and it didn't pass. So you won't have to come up on that INS rate a little bit just to get back, since it didn't pass?
To get back? No, sir.
No. Okay.
No, sir. Because the total rate stayed the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And part of our, when we were, all the presentations that I did over with the bond election is, we told people we do not anticipate the INS tax rate would need to go up. And so we're, that's a promise, and we're committed to keeping that promise.
That's as a board too. And I want to step in on that, Dr. Belding. Thanks for bringing that up. As a board, we made lots of promises and things that we said we wanted to do because we needed this bond to pass. And, big props to our city, just like Dr. Belding said, our community that stepped up for us during that bond election and passed those 3 bonds for us. We're not going to pull the rug out from underneath them.
No.
That's not this one board member's plan, and I do not foresee that that's any of the other board members' plan either.
Texas finance being what it is for schools, and the session that'll come up, and maybe there'll be nothing for schools again. Maybe there will be no extras, and they'll go through a session and argue all kinds of other things. Things being the way they do, if they don't improve next year, you're looking at another deficit. What is you guys' thought on that long term? Expecting that, nothing's going to change on the state side. What is the long-term prognosis of this? Are we going to still face deficits? What are we going to do?
Well, at some point, we've got to get to balance, and there will be hard decisions that have to be made. I think it was it workshop 1 or workshop 2, Ryan, that I talked about the trains coming into the station at some point. And we're going to have to make some tough decisions, like increased class size, looking at student programs and reducing those programs. I've already indicated that our staff is very lean. So to continue to cut in the staff in a significant way is going to be very, very difficult. And so we're increasing class sizes, and not K through 4 and trying to protect 5th grade, but 6th grade and up. There's obviously some savings there with positions and things. But we're going to look at our programs. We're going to look at what we're offering, and make some really hard choices about eliminating some things, because that's what we're going to have to do. Now, I don't want anybody to watch this thinking, oh, they're getting ready to cut X, Y, Z, whatever. That's not the case. I mean, we shore down this deficit again to less than $1 million this year. It's buying us more time to allow, additional student growth to occur that we know is coming with all the housing that's coming in. Most of the districts in the state that are doing well financially is because they've got a lot of student growth, high percentages of student growth, and that helps them in what I would call right side up financially. So we're trying to buy ourselves time and protect the programs and the experience, not only by our kids, but our staff, that makes Midlothian special, and invest in that to keep what is special here special, so that way we can continue to bring in families and kids and grow our way out of this to some degree. But at some point, we're going to look to the community for support, and look to the community for that additional investment to help us to get this budget where it needs to be in a long-term fix. So we're hoping for the state to come through for us in this session. Like your question, DB, was like, if nothing else changes, what's the plan? And so we've got a lot of different thoughts, but we're trying to buy ourselves time to get to the other side of this.
Ryan, when it comes to the board and seeing all these things happening, we're running out of time, but you're seeing all these things happening. What is the general consensus of the board as we're going forward with another tough year, and probably another tough year ahead, because we know the state legislature is going to be interesting. It always is. I mean, as far as and I know you could only speak for you, their consensus. You sit with these people. Are you guys doing enough of a good enough job of trying to manage this or communicating this to the public effectively? Hey, this is the situation we're in.
Yeah, and I think, thanks to people like you, DV, that put on shows like this and that constantly have people on, we're getting the word out there, but how many are listening? How many are paying attention and following along with us? We could talk about poor voter turnout. You and I touched on that before we started about some different things, and I know you've harped on that, and that didn't have to do with anything that we're doing right now. But do I think this board is doing a great job of doing everything that we can? Absolutely. I think that the district is doing a great job. The consensus is we are lean and we are struggling, and we don't want to cut anything else. So we're going to have to call to the community, or we're going to have to cut something. Because like Dr. Belding said, that train's coming to the station. If the purse strings don't get cut by legislation, which they did a good job of taking care of our teachers, and they gave some percentages last year, we got some growth. We matched it too, and that's why we're sitting still in a deficit, because we have funds out there that we're not taking advantage of as a district right now. So depending upon what happens, depending on what happens, DV, something's gonna have to happen,
I imagine. I imagine there's tough decisions ahead,
Yeah.
and I do keep you guys in prayer because I wouldn't want the job. It's a lot. It's a lot, and it's a lot of big decisions, and nobody's ever gonna like everything you do. And you know, there's always somebody gonna get the short end of it, and or there's gonna be a misunderstanding. It gets ugly, and you're right about the voter turnout. It's pretty horrible considering the immense importance of a school district and the way that it works in Texas with how much impact they have in your life, in your everyday life. These local elections don't get enough. Ryan, I know that you're getting ready to go. I have a couple more questions for the superintendent, but before you go, I just if you want to say anything to the people, I'll go ahead and shut up.
Yeah, no, and I hate that I have to run. I hate that it was such a circus here. Y'all probably saw and heard all the animals over here, so I apologize for that. DV, I just want to say thank you once again for having
Appreciate it.
us on. I apologize that I have to run early. People watching, parents, teachers, students, if you have a question, reach out. Know that we are fighting for you. We're doing everything that we can. We're going to give you absolutely everything that we can. Administrators, everybody, we love you. We appreciate you. Community, like I said, you showed up big for us when the bond came and we needed your help. Things are going to happen. We're going to continue to need your help. And I closed out the budget workshop last night by reminding everyone, I'm not sure when this is going to air, DV, but it is Teacher Appreciation Week. If you haven't shown appreciation to a teacher yet, please make sure you do so.
Definitely. It is a job. That's another job that I don't want anything to do with. I'm grateful that somebody does it. Thank you so much again for coming on, President Timm. I really do appreciate when you do come on. I'm going to go ahead and continue with the superintendent. Thank you again.
All right. Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
Have a good night.
So yeah, we covered all the bad stuff and all the budget stuff and all the rough stuff, but we're closing out a year, another year at MISD, another year that you're here, Dr. Belding. So I kind of want
Yes,
to
sir.
talk about the good things that happened this year, the good things that you guys did, CTE, because you know I'm a big fan of CTE. Tell me what's going on with special education, what's going on with sports. Just tell the community kind of the good stuff.
Absolutely. And thanks for the opportunity to do this. And before I get into the good side, I just want to reassure everybody, we are not going bankrupt. You know, we're making really tough decisions to secure the long-term future of the district and continue to invest in our kids and our teachers. So please, everyone be assured about that. It's a struggle, but we're moving forward. So the great things about this year, you know, are academically, our kids are continuing to show really strong growth in our early literacy and reading. We're seeing a great growth with the kids in the assessments that we give them in those younger grades to just measure where their reading is progressing. And really across the district, we're seeing very strong movement of our early readers, and they're learning to read at great levels. So we're outpacing national averages, and so very excited about that. Now, if you look at our middle school and high school programs, I mean, you know, everything from Destination Imagination, going to globals, multiple teams at the elementary and the high school levels. Academically, our advanced academic programs where we've got over 200 national AP scholars, we've got over 200 national recognition scholars. So, you know, our advanced academics are doing really well with that. And in our special ed programs, we've continued to do an analysis of our special ed programs with different consultants, like from Region 10, that came and walked classrooms and are going to work with us long term on making adjustments. And we're adding special ed teachers and paraprofessionals next year to continue to have more programs at campuses to bring some of those class sizes down. So even in a challenging budget time, we're adding personnel to those special ed programs where our kids need us sometimes the most. And so I'm really proud of that. And I'm proud of that particular department and the adjustments that we continue to make with special ed to help all children in our district learn and progress. You know, also with that, thinking about academically, we've got kids that are competing in academic contests. Like we have an academic All-American speech and debate student. We have, gosh, our robotics team over at Heritage High School made the state competition in two different competition tracks. And so you think about robotics and engineering and all of that. So it shows that our kids are doing really well. with that. Our college career military readiness indicators, we have over 90% of our graduates that are CCMR ready as measured by the state. Our graduation rates continue to go up. And so our high schools continue to really push kids in that academics as well. Athletically, we continue to have really strong seasons. We've got a mixed doubles group that's going to the state tournament next week. We've got kids going to the state track meet that have qualified. Our Heritage Jaguar, the girls track team, won the regional meet recently, and we got a lot of kids heading to that state meet. We've had kids go to the state cross country meet, state swim meet, deep good runs into the playoffs, and all of our team sports, or most of them. And so again, we're just seeing a lot of great success. But some of the biggest pride I have is that the 31 seniors that are academic all-state in their sport. And so again, while they're having great success in wrestling and you name it, we're seeing great academic success as well. And then fine arts here continues to be performing at a great level. Both of our high school drill teams did very well at their national competitions. And I think the Heritage Bells won nationals in the hip hop category. And then our Walnut Grove dance team won nationals as well. And so, just really, really proud of them. Our theater groups, one act play, both went to the region level competition. Heritage actually won the area one act play, and then Midlothian High School advanced out of region to go to the state. They'll go to state next week, I believe. Our bands, our choirs, our visual arts are all just really knocking it out of the top. And so proud of them. All state band kids. We've got our color guard is doing well. So the greatness is across programs. We're seeing student success all the way through, even though we're staffed very lean. And we're continuing to support those programs. And we had a golfer at the state tournament from Heritage. We have our ag program has just had a fantastic season once again, with multiple blue ribbons and ag mech, and then kids just placing at very high at shows all over the state, learning great life lessons through that program. And I could just keep going and going, because our CTE programs are continuing to grow. We had to add an entrepreneurship teacher for this year because of the demand, and we're looking to add a third one next year because of the demand. We've also added three CTE teachers in addition to that, and doing some CTE courses in health science at the middle school level for high school credit to give the kids a jump start so they can get to that end, by the time they graduate. And so when we're looking at our designing the CTE center that was part of the bond program, we visited multiple areas of the state, including TSTC, Collin College, University of Texas at Dallas, Louisville CTE Center, and down at Temple College, and looking at their workforce spaces and just getting some great ideas about what we can design, and looking at auto tech spaces, cosmetology spaces, engineering spaces, aviations, drones, all kinds of construction trades, expanding those opportunities for our kids, and making sure that our kids are ready when they graduate to move into the world and to be not only competitive, but highly successful as they move into adulthood. And our junior ROTC continues to just knock it out of the park. Colonel Bolton does a fantastic job with that. I was recently at MHS at the military signing, where we had multiple kids sign their enlistment and talking about going and serving. And that's just such a big piece of who we are as well, is serving not only the nation, but our community. And so just really proud of just the breadth and what we've expanded offerings in just the 2.5 years that I've been here, and just the way the staff has stepped up, and they're always willing to say, yes, that's a great idea, or let's investigate that and let's deploy that and give our kids those opportunities.
There's two questions that came to mind. One of them I asked you last year, so I'm going to try to get an answer this year. And the other one was, did you help that hip hop team win? Was that you?
No, that would be, they overcame anything that I might have influenced. I'm a drummer. I am not a dancer in a big way. So yes.
And then Midlothian High School or Heritage, who do you favor?
Man, I love it when the Panthers and Jags are progressing, like the softball teams are in the third round together in the playoffs. And so I just love cheering them all on and being there, because our kids are just fantastic. I mentioned to a group I met with today because we played a video of a student talking. And when that went, our kids are so well spoken. At the recent Dallas High School Musical Awards this past Saturday night, MHS was there and they won Best Costume out of all the musicals in the area. And the young lady that went down and accepted the award on behalf of MHS was a student. And I mean, it's a, you've been at the Music Hall at Fair Park. It's huge and it's packed. And she has the presence to deliver a great acceptance speech. And, you know, our kids just have that kind of presence. It's our parents that pour that into them. It's our teachers, our community that pours that into them. It's really a special place. We have special kids here.
If I can ever help with that, CT, if you go the HVAC direction, if I could ever help, because I do that as a vocational instructor, and I've gotten a lot of contacts, but just in general, if I can ever help the school district in any way with that. The other thing too is that there's a lot of grants and stuff like that. I don't know if the school district's looking into that, but I know like Encore, they're needing linemen so bad, paying them out of high school and stuff like that. Are those partnerships that you have been seeking or looking at, maybe getting bond writers to be able to get, not bond, the different grant writers to get those things?
Absolutely. And one of the things we've been doing over the last year, Shelley Blaylock, who Ryan alluded to, our chief academic officer, and Chris Vernon, our director of CTE, they put together a community group of stakeholders in CTE. And they've been working over the last year on a visioning of what we want to offer based on the needs of our community, based on the interests of our kids. And therefore, when we design that CT center, here are the programs we want it to support, as opposed to letting outside groups influence us one way or the other, so that it's driven by our local people and the local workforce needs. And so the answer is yes. I mean, once we really establish the programs where we're going in HVAC, I'm anticipating being one of them, either in phase 1 or phase 2 of this particular facility in the future. We'll be looking at those grant opportunities, because one of the places we visited, they've got all these HVAC units that different manufacturers have donated for them to be able to work on and learn on, and all of that, and all the different equipment to learn electrical, plumbing, and things of this nature. So we definitely want to leverage partnerships in order to be able to provide those experiences for our kids. And again, they get that certification, they can go be employed and really make a good living.
They can. And I am a complete believer in the trades, and they need so many of them. There's so many vacancies right now and I'm getting older. I'm an older guy now, and I'm not climbing on roofs anymore. I'm teaching it now. So that's one less person that's up there climbing on roofs doing these things. And can you imagine a Texas summer without air conditioning? That would really be terrible.
No, I think if you want to be popular, you should be an HVAC technician in July. Everybody loves to see you when they need you.
You are the most heralded person around. And before I close out, I'm going to give you the mic to go ahead and talk to the parents and anything that you want to put out for this end of school year, maybe tickets for graduation, whatever it is that you're running into, and then I'll close out.
I appreciate it. And, to our parents, first off, thank you for giving us the opportunity to work with your child. It means so much to us. And, I tell people all the time, we're not going to be perfect, but we're going to work really hard, and we're going to give it everything we've got and do our best. And to our community and to our taxpayers, thank you for the resources that you provide for us. It means everything to us, and we want to be good stewards of that and make sure that we are helping our kids achieve great things so that they can graduate from Midlothian ISD and move on and have a bright future with tons of opportunities. And so this is a special place at a special time, made up of special people. And I truly appreciate everybody's support, and, look forward to seeing you at all the different activities at graduation and next fall and summer, when we get cranked up again with the next school year and all the different things. Come out and be part of it, because it really is it's a special time.
Well, if there's one consensus, and this community can be kind of fickle when it comes to politics, if there's one consensus that I've always come across in these interviews or talking to people, is what they say about you. They say that you are a great leader. that you are doing big things, that you really care about the school district. And I mean, they always say, and politics can get ugly in this town and this county, but the one thing they always say, talk about, is your leadership and the job that you're doing. So I want to commend you for that. I know that I couldn't imagine having your job, the difficulties of every day doing that. So I do want to thank you for what you do, regardless of pay. You don't have to be as good as you are at what you do. You could get paid and be terrible superintendent. You're not that. So I really do appreciate you and what you do for the school district. But can you stick around real quick after the show?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.